I think we have Chris Bertram with us on the line.
Yeah, we do.
Chris, how are you?
Yes.
A lot to break down here. What was your take on the press conference and the amount of disclosure that we heard about this case?
The fact that I think yesterday, as we saw that early, and I may have mentioned this during our show yesterday when I was on, but that the fact that they didn't put out at 8 o'clock early in the morning, they didn't put out the pictures, but within a very short time, within a few hours before noon, they put out the pictures that they had. Then as the day went on, they put out additional pictures and videos. I think that was very strategic in their way, that they were looking for the public's help. I think the first, overnight that they had not got a good description or a good name of who the suspect was, and they were going to, ask for the public's help, which in this case, the public stepped forward and identified. Unfortunately, a family member had to do the right thing.
I think I should have introduced you. Our listeners should all know Chris Bertram by now, former law enforcement, incredible detective and investigator. Does there come a point in an investigation like we're talking about here where the authorities do want to get the public involved? For example, you're not getting as much information as you want, so you post a picture, you post a photograph. I mean, you've got to sort of keep your investigation private in some respect, but in others, there's certain parts that you do want to expose so that you can get public response and get more people to help you out solving your case.
Absolutely. Greg, and when you were a prosecutor, that was one of the things that we wanted to keep the integrity of the investigation, meaning that if we could keep it to ourselves and still solve it very quickly, we wanted to do that. But unfortunately, that is not always the case. And I think that sometimes law enforcement fails to do this soon enough, to put that information out soon enough. Sometimes they want to hold it so closely, not realizing that the public can help. And that does create other issues. You have to have the resources to be able to take in the tips, especially on a big case like this. But in this case, I think that with law enforcement, their initial investigation, not, producing a suspect, they needed to go to the public. And I think that you saw that, yesterday when they have the first news conference, but they don't put out the information. But then within about 2 or 3 hours, we get our first pictures, which are, very good for the public to maybe help and assist. Then later on, we see the video that they show, which again, I think shows, that the investigation had not garnered enough leads to really identify a suspect. I think that last one toward the end of the day yesterday probably precipitated what led to his arrest.
Can I ask you a practical question? How do you sort through 11,000 tips?
Great question, because, a lot of times with smaller police departments, mid-sized police departments, they don't have the ability to do it, in a proficient, fast, quick manner. In this case, all hands on deck. You had state, local, federal officials, probably their analysts and support people that expected that we were going to get thousands of calls, and they did, and they went through those as quickly as possible to find the viable leads to get those out into the field to the detectives and special agents to go and follow up on those and find out if there really was something there.
Chris, when we heard the press conference, we had the Utah Commissioner of Public Safety, Mason, speak to us. We had the FBI Director Patel. We had the Utah County Sheriff Mike Smith speak. We had 3 different law enforcement agencies speak. And you've been in cases like this where you've had to deal with other agencies. Did you feel in this case that there was a good collaboration, that these agencies actually did work well together, and that there wasn't a, hey, I'm in charge now, or this is my jurisdiction?
Yeah, Greg, that gave me a smile, because you and I well know that sometimes there is a rift and there is not a good relationship. I will tell you 100% this was probably a very good collaboration between all of those. A lot of times when the FBI shows up, if there's not a good relationship prior to that, they may not be well received. And in this case, Utah County Sheriffs and Orem Police Department, state police, have a great relationship with our local office here in Salt Lake. And that speaks volumes, because, I gave the example to somebody. We had that tornado in 1999, and an FBI agent, while I was doing my thesis about the 2002 Winter Olympics, he made the comment, don't pass your card out at a tornado. you have to build those relationships before build those social capital. And in this case, you can see that all that was in place, and so it was seamless and it went well. In a case like this, you're going to need the federal resources. You're going to need the state resources. As a local agency, you're just not going to be able to get it done on your own. And unfortunately, there are times when they do that. They don't ask for that help, or they don't ask for it soon enough. This was immediate, and you could tell in the investigation. And one of the reasons that I said that I felt that they were going to get this person in custody within 24 or 48 hours was because of that collaboration.
Let me ask you a question about security at the event. So I understand it was Charlie Kirk himself and his team that wanted to have an outdoor event. They felt like it would be more open, more available for people. And of course, we know the outcome. What kind of additional security could have been provided, do you think, for something like that, and maybe will be in the future?
It's absolutely going to drive what goes on in the future. Outdoor events, I mean, you could see that setup was a good setup for what they wanted to do, but there are security risks. There's elevated positions that have to be secured in some cases. And, I know retrospectively this will be, scrutinized. There will be lessons learned. There will be changes made in what you do. But, I imagine that there was a risk assessment. I imagine that there were some intel and information, through the state police or maybe the FBI that determined that venue would be safe under the circumstances of, 6 officers and a few plainclothes officers. Again, retrospectively, we know that that's not the case. And I think that if, events are going to be held, whether they're inside or outside, there's always got to be enough safety and security on that campus or any venue that there is. And I think that we do that very well in Utah, because we have a lot of events here, have had a lot of events here over the decades, but planning, making sure that everything is covered, making sure you have the right resources. Unfortunately, in the future for events, there's always that need. You can mandate the need, or you can cause that the need is, high to have that kind of security. There are probably people that, may have believed that there wasn't enough or there was too much. But in this case, the need of this tragic event is going to cause college campuses and other venues to make sure that we have enough security and everything is covered. Again, whether it's a command or a unified command, and potential tactical teams and or just security. I mean, putting somebody in a place as a security officer or police officer deters criminal behavior a lot of times, deters domestic terrorist behavior. We know that you can buy down a lot of risk with just simply putting up a fence or putting a security guard there.
Chris, in your long career, you've probably had the opportunity to look into the criminal mind about as much as anybody. But what do you make of this phenomena that we're seeing, where these individuals are writing these things on their bullet casings? I mean, the shell casings. They're these horrible, and we saw it with the shooting that occurred at the school a couple of weeks ago. We see it now allegedly with this individual. What do you make of that?
I think there's a few things that go into that, Greg. One, I think we've got copycats. We saw the shooting in New York City of the healthcare CEO, and this was something that was brought out, about what the shooter had done. I think that is, there's a part of it that we're going to copy that's, something that, especially for younger people, they're greatly influenced by what they're seeing on social media and what they're seeing in other realms, and they think that is the soup of the day, what they need to do. In addition, there are sometimes internal meanings to those. Now, whether it's the inside meaning or some type of, that they want to send this message and has a greater effect. What was written on those had a significant meaning to Mr. Robinson. And in, we look at that as that, it also had to have a meaning to a larger, scope of people, but maybe an inside meaning. And so it may have taken a minute for, the society or the people investigating to understand what that meant. I know that there was a phrase written on, number 2 or number 3 bullet in the gun. If he had gotten to that, there was a meaning, a significant meaning, most likely even to the order of how he put them in there, and if he was going to have to use those. Yeah,
interesting. Hey, thank you so much for joining us. You're always so available to us, and it's such a wealth of information. I want to talk about, I'll follow up on something that Chris just talked about. We spoke earlier with a former FBI agent who echoed a lot of what Bertram just said. This is Greg Rogers, former FBI agent, who talked about the sort of collaboration and the work of the local police.
Just strong police work. This was an impressive investigation. Thankfully, the young man made numerous colossal mistakes and left great forensic evidence. The officers did a great job of acting on that, and I'll be very interested now to see how this prosecution goes. My guess is they weren't as clear on that as I'd hoped at the press conference, but my guess is there'll be state charges and federal charges.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree with that. Rogers went on to say that this killer wouldn't have been caught so quickly had he not left so much evidence, and that always happens. No matter there's no perfect murder.
Had the young man been, and I hesitate to use the term, but had he been more talented and efficient and not left all of the physical evidence, this case would have taken a very long time to identify him. So the fact that we had, good security camera footage and we're able to put the photographs out there, once that happens, somebody's going to recognize him.
And in fact, we're at this event. We're talking about a shooting that occurred. Now it's been 2 days.
It was Wednesday.
Yeah, Charlie Kirk was killed just after noon at UVU campus. He was speaking to a group there, a large group, a young people on behalf of an organization that he operates. He was shot and killed by a gunman who was on top of a roof about 175 yards away. And the police jumped into this so quickly. You sort of think with 3,000 people there, how did somebody get away?
Right.
But 3,000 people they're looking, as we all would, when you hear gunshot, you're not looking for the shooter. You're looking for the exit. You know what I mean? You're trying to get located.
Well, and that's a lot of people running, right?
Right. Which creates some cover for the shooter too.
Yeah.
And if you looked at some of this video, I mean, he's walking away from a murder allegedly. Well, in fact, whoever the person is in the video,
right,
almost certainly did the murder, whether it was a suspect or not. But he's walking by other people who are sort of leaving the campus and hiding in plain view, so to speak.